More and more people are getting into vibe coding this year or AI coding. There are a ton of services that say you can build anything you can think of. But with a ton of services and a ton of requirements and a learning curve, how do you actually start? This video will be great for people who want to start vibe coding but have no technical background, no understanding of what coding is and how it looks like. So let's look at the things you shouldn't do when you're a complete beginner. Fortunately, most of the vibe coding tools have a free trial where you can try to build something in their environment, also as well as post your product to be available to everyone else. But when I started doing this, what I quickly noticed is that if I take this tool that I created there and put it on the other website or in the other place, it stops running. Why is that? Because this tool runs within its own environment only. They suggest you their own databases, their own platforms to put it live, but they don't tell you mostly that this will not run outside of it. So that leads us to the very first mistake you can do is not knowing what files do what and what formats you need to actually put something on your website, for example, or share something with your friends or just run something locally. So let's start with how are we supposed to build and what we are supposed to use. So first of all, you need to know that there are static files and all the other fancy frameworks. So the static files you see a lot have this HTML tag in them. So HTML will be the most basic file that runs. Specifically, index.html is something that will run in the browser and most of the time will run okay locally if you just double click on the file and open it from this computer. Most of the simplest tool builders like Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, and so on will build you HTML file right away. But if you're using some kind of a fancy tools, some applications that specifically build other applications, most of the time you will run the file and see something as React. Well, try to avoid that if you're just beginning it and you don't know what it is. So let's have a look at these main files that you might face and that are actually the most useful for you because they will run anywhere. So HTML file, as I mentioned, that's your main file. CSS file, if you happen to have it separately, which doesn't happen often, but this is something responsible for styles, for colors, for how the boxes are located in your tool and everything like that. Then JavaScript file, again, usually it is inside the HTML, but if you happen to have it separately, that is something responsible for all the functionality. Like when you click the button and something opens, that's what JavaScript does. Right, so static sites, this is specifically the sites that use this mainly, three. And the React is a library that is more complicated, and most of the time, if you just build a simple website and run it on the shared hosting, React files will not run on it. So you need to know that before you build. And the PHP files also count as static, but it will help you create a more complicated tools with saving data, with databases, for example, or something that happens on the background on your server side. So when you know that, you can already ask or tell if this file that is built static or not. So most of the time, again, when you build in Claude or anything, you will see that the format is already HTML, so you don't need to worry about that. But you just need this general understanding of, okay, can I run this one somewhere else? Or does it only stay in Bolt and their databases? Or does it only stay in Lovable? Or does it only stay in Firebase? Or maybe if you know how to connect GitHub, you can still share it. But if you don't, perhaps you need the very simple file first. All right, so let's look at the next one. The next mistake is overbuilding when you don't know anything about the app. Let's say you have a very cool idea of the very complicated application in your head, but you never built it before, so you start doing several buttons with several functions, several tabs in there, and you needed to save data and also to show data and customize data and maybe connect API, and you wanted everything together for it to be a very cool, robust tool. Well, that's not a very good idea to start with this, because the amount of errors and mistakes and challenges that you're going to run into just going to eat up all of your time before you can build anything that actually works. So start with something simple. Start with a one-page tool, just a calculator or a checklist or a quiz. Anything very simple, like they say, one-button tool, but it works. So you can see and start with something simple. You can always do several pages and make the buttons to open the several pages. So it's much better to make several tools but simple than one but overly complicated that you will spend all of your time with and you don't even know if you will be able to run it successfully. All right? So try to keep it simple until you understand more about how it works. Well, the next one, the mistake number 3, is the opposite of the previous. It's like when you study everything, you watch tons of tutorials, but you never actually try to build something. You might be saving the templates, the tools from other people, but when it comes to creating something on your own, you don't know how to tell it, how to describe it. So usually just try it. That's the first step to do something. Try to build something simple. If you don't know how to build it, you can still ask AI to do that. You come to it and say like, hey, I have an idea of this calculator, but I do not know where to start or how to do that. Can you find me similar calculators and say what they do and what input I need, for example, and what functionality it's supposed to have? It will describe you something, several ideas perhaps. Choose something that you like and try to build it from there. Then after testing, after running it, you might have more ideas on what to do with this. If you don't, then again, go to AI and say, okay, that's cool, but how can I improve it? What else can I add to this? So it's better to go through it yourself once than to watch a couple hours of tutorials and never actually try that. So please, practice. The next one is mistake number 4, which I face a lot, is not backing up the files or not testing them when you do some kind of a changes in it. Well, I know it's sometimes hard to test everything and kind of takes you time after every step. It feels redundant, and I sometimes feel lazy to do that. But then if something broke on a couple steps before and you keep going, you might spend even more time trying to find and fix it than if you just tested it after this change. Also, save the files. Not every AI is going to save files in the history the same way they were. Sometimes they change the original file and you will lose the previous version unless you saved it. So try to keep track of what you're doing, because again, it's easier when you catch it on the way than when you have to check for it after. Again, if you still happen to run a mistake, come back to it and try to give it as much information as you can about these mistakes. Like, what did mistake display? How did it look like? What exactly you do that this error happened? Sometimes AIs like Claude will tell you specifically to go to the browser, open a developer tab, look at this window and copy me the error it shows. Some of them will not do that. So try to give as much information of the error as you can. And again, remember that testing something within environment where you build it and testing something outside of this environment is a different thing. It might work there, with inside ChatGPT, inside Gemini, inside Claude, but when you put it outside, suddenly everything broke. So try to test it maybe exactly where you want it right away. That will save you a lot of time. All right, and the next one, the last mistake, number 5, is accepting the changes you don't quite understand. I know we all want to be super efficient with what we do. We don't have time to learn all this new stuff. We just want this thing to work. But then how can you know that it works correctly if you don't understand how it works? And it's very simple to learn that. If you don't understand what AI suggests, you just ask it about it. Like, what exactly does it do? I never did it before. Can you explain me how it works? That's totally gonna save you from doing something you completely don't understand and making something completely useless because you didn't understand how this process worked and broke something very important in there. So yeah, like, idea and the help with the design and creation is good, but as the coder, as the creator of this tool, you still have to understand what you did, how it works, and like evaluate it. Is it really useful? Would I personally use this one, or would I just say like, what does it do? So try to understand what's going on in your process. The responsibility is still on you for what you create. AI probably, in most cases, will not take responsibility for that. So try to be simple, try to practice, try to avoid losing your files in the process, and try to understand what you're doing and learn in the process. Like, ask about anything you don't understand, and gradually build this understanding of how these tools work and what else you can create in the future. And when you develop like this, soon you will be able to understand much more things in the coding, so you can scale and you can build something more complicated and something more impressive. But then again, you cannot jump right away and build something absolutely amazing if you've never done it before. So, as it says here, good idea beats a complicated fancy tool. Think about what use it brings, not about how fancy it looks. Like, if you find something useful for yourself, perhaps somebody else will find it useful for them. And this simple tool will be more valued than something overly complicated, but that doesn't have an actual use. Now, AI Profit Scoop, I will post a video specifically about how I code within the Claude environment, what and how I ask, how do I come up with ideas, what challenges do I have, what the best strategies I figured out for myself in terms of like saving the space, memory, and files, and all of the things that I learned during 1 year of working with it. So if you want to see this video and just copy my steps, please check out the aiprofitschool.com/go. And I hope this video will be helpful for you. I hope you will avoid the mistakes most people do and some of the confusion that you can have when you're just starting doing that. And I hope you build something amazing. See you in the next one.